Welcome to the Diversity and Inclusion on Air podcast. This podcast is a program of the American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges Diversity Matters Initiative. The podcast explores various issues related to diversity and inclusion in the veterinary profession and provides the AAVMC an opportunity to offer ongoing diversity programming to our member institutions as well as all veterinary professionals. My name is Dr. Lisa Greenhill. I'm the Chief Diversity Officer here at the AAVMC. So today we are talking a bit about mentoring. Now, we all know that mentoring can be an important part of student and professional development. In fact, having a mentor is correlated with an increased likelihood to pursue higher education. And in the workplace, it's actually highly correlated with job satisfaction, which certainly we can all say in veterinary medicine, we need more of that right now. Mentors also reap the rewards. Mentors are much more likely to gain new skills and a greater understanding of their own jobs and positions. Additionally, they also have a much better pulse on how organizational culture is impacting themselves, their mentees, and certainly others. Now, during the pandemic, we actually saw a lot of organizations, both kind of not-for-profit and for-profit, increase the availability of mentor programs in hopes of alleviating some of the stress and anxiety experienced by the pandemic. And my guest was right there in the thick of things, having started her organization about 2 years ahead of the COVID-19 pandemic. So today we are talking to Dr. Valerie Marco, co-founder of Pawsibilities, a nonprofit devoted to diversifying all veterinary roles. Welcome to the show, Valerie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. So as is our custom on the show, I have guests tell us a little bit about themselves before we kind of dive into our conversation.
Absolutely. So I completed my veterinary and PhD degrees at the University of Georgia College of Veterinary Medicine. And before that, I did my bachelor's degree at Cornell University, where I did a bachelor's in animal sciences with a minor in Spanish. And through all of that, I saw myself growing up in the veterinary profession, and the more I continued through that professional path, the more I saw less of myself. So as I made it through this tumultuous and busy career training, I decided to do something about it.
All right.
Right now, I am the CEO and the co-founder of Pawsibilities Vet Med, and as of 2.5 weeks ago, I am the owner of Valkyrie Consulting.
All right, congrats. So now when you say you were seeing less of yourself, are you talking about that kind of reflection in terms of BIPOC representation in the profession?
Absolutely. So I grew up in the Dominican Republic, and there my mom is a veterinarian. So I always saw someone around me that looked like myself. Mm-hmm. I didn't necessarily know that I was going to pursue a career in veterinary medicine. I guess everybody around me knew, but not me. I kept fooling myself into thinking I was going to do something different. And so when I moved to New York City and found myself in a household that had no pets, that's when I realized I couldn't see myself in any other career, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do within veterinary medicine. So I started volunteering at a shelter, not at a shelter, sorry, at a pet shop. And this pet shop, the owner was actually a Black man who was a licensed veterinary technician. And so I continued to see individuals that looked like myself living in the Bronx, New York. He put me in touch with a veterinarian in Manhattan who happened to be a Black woman. And so as I'm going through high school, I'm seeing people in the veterinary profession that still looks like me. That started changing when I started my undergraduate career at Cornell University. I started with a pre-freshman summer program, a cohort that came in a little bit early. And through that, there were a lot of individuals that have similar backgrounds to mine, being BIPOC individuals that were from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, individuals that were from immigrant families. But as we started the fall semester, and kind of got diluted into the rest of campus, I didn't see as many people that looked like me. And the individuals that started the pre-vet career with me, I can think of maybe 3 or 4 of us that are now veterinarians. Many of those individuals ended up going into different careers. And I'm talking about like the group around me of maybe 10 of us that were like people of color that wanted to go to vet school. And so as I started going through veterinary school and my PhD, that became even less and less and less. And I wanted to know why is this happening? Because I grew up in a culture in which everybody looked like me. I was part of the majority for most of my life, right? And then even going to New York City, I was still part of the quote unquote majority of that area. Individuals looked like me because I am Afro-Latina, so I identify with the Black community, I identify with the Hispanic community, and I kind of live in a weird in-between place between them as well. But that also means that I can kind of shift around and feel like I fit in multiple places. And so it was very challenging for me at times to look around the room and be one of the few individuals of color. And I wanted to do something about it.
All right. And so that's something, it's Pawsibilities?
Yes.
What is Pawsibilities?
Yeah, so Pawsibilities Vet Med is a nonprofit organization that started with an idea. So as I progressed through vet school and my PhD, I just continued to have this just little annoyance in the back of my mind that there was something that I could do to make things better, to make sure that people knew about the veterinary profession, to make sure that individuals from all backgrounds were able to access this profession. And I didn't know quite what that was, but I was fortunate enough. My mom was being a vet. She had a small animal practice, but she also had done a thesis working on rabies in vet school. And she actually focused in veterinary school on small ruminants. And so I ran around with her, going to farms, sheep and goats and seeing, dogs and cats and doing all these different things. And as I was growing up, she actually joined the Ministry of Agriculture. So I saw the government side of things as well as the private practice. And when I moved to New York City, she actually put me in touch with a couple of individuals that mentored me through some of that process. And one of them worked at USDA, one of them worked in academia. And I got involved in research and I got to see so much of veterinary medicine. I got to see equine and ruminants, cattle, as well as small ruminants. I got to see some zoo med. I got to see some lab animal. And I was just so excited about all of the things that I saw people doing within veterinary medicine. So when I got into my first year of vet school, I remember going through this careers courses our first semester, and every week we had a veterinarian from a different background doing a different kind of career come in and talk about it. And I remember a lot of times those individuals would ask at the beginning of class, like, who knows what a so-and-so vet does? And I'd be like, yes, I do. But looking around the room, I realized a lot of people didn't know. So I wanted to find a way to combine this passion to let the entire world know that they could join the vet profession and to let people know about the myriad of careers that they could do within the profession. And I was like, do I do some sort of podcast? Do I do video series? Do I write a book? Like, how do you get to people?
Yeah.
And at an animal health hackathon, I started thinking about not necessarily the businessy side of things, but more of the connection side of things, the network side of things. And my idea was a mobile platform, a platform in which individuals can network with one another, in which mentoring can happen. So to me, that was creating a network of facilitated opportunities for individuals who may not otherwise be either exposed to the career or have the support that they needed through their career. So it started there. We paused it for a little bit. And then once we finished school, my husband and I decided to just go ahead and start it.
Very, very cool. So in the interest of disclosure, I remember way back in the days, sitting on the phone with Valerie talking about the hackathon. It seems like forever ago. It wasn't that long ago, but it seems like a long time. So what need is Pawsibilities designed to meet?
Yeah. So I realized that throughout my career, the reason I made it to where I was is because at all times I had somebody supporting me. I had a village of mentors that gave me their everything and helped me through all of it. And I honestly believed that everybody had that. And the more I meet people, I realized not everybody had the exposure that I had, the network that I had, the village that I had. And I also realized that individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds, individuals that were coming from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, from families that were immigrant families, also didn't have those opportunities. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized when it came to individuals with disabilities, a lot of people didn't know what were the regulations, what were the rules, what they could do. Something as simple as, well, I have, X disability, can I still do it?
Yeah.
I found a lot of individuals that didn't think that that was possible. And then I also found individuals that were doing it. And so I wanted to connect people to people and to resources, and that niche of mentorship and guidance and resources seemed to be particularly lacking in certain communities. And so I wanted individuals from disadvantaged communities or marginalized communities or underrepresented communities to have a level playing field to access this profession if that's the path that they chose to go.
All right. So what age groups does Pawsibilities target? Is this for, the wee ones, or is it for, pre-vet students like yourself who, kind of was trudging it out there in Ithaca, or is it for veterinary professionals, or the whole continuum?
Kind of the whole continuum. So right now, individuals that are 18 and older can join. And that is because we have in place the safeguards to have individuals that are like underage on the platform. That's actually part of our Given Tuesday campaign, which will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. I think it's Tuesday, November 29th.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal is to raise the funds that we need to run background checks and organize our platform in such a way that it will be safe for individuals 13 and older, because we know that people want to join this profession much earlier than 18, but we also want to make sure that we do that safely. So it is for individuals as of right now, 18 and older, who want to join the veterinary profession or already in the vet profession. So basically 18 until you retire and don't want to log in anymore. But it is for vets, for technicians, for assistants, for hospital managers, and it can be individuals that are already in the profession, that are interested in the profession, or anywhere along that journey.
Okay, so so who are the mentors, and what do the mentors do? Like, so there's all of these folks that are really interested. We've been certainly hearing a lot about Pawsibilities, certainly in the last 2 years. I mean, just about everything DEI in the last 2 years in the wake of the murder of George Floyd just kind of exploded. And so, in light of all of that, how are you recruiting, and what are they, what are they doing? What's the job of the mentor, a Pawsibilities mentor?
Yeah, so the path is individuals that want to come into the platform. So we have an online, like mobile platform, kind of like a social media website, and you have to take a 2-hour training to be allowed to join. Mm-hmm. Our requirement is this training, which has basics of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It goes through mentorship, inclusive mentorship, and touches on personality types and growth mindset and things of the sort. So everybody, mentors and mentees, has to go through that, because we want allies on the platform as well to help mentor the next generation of veterinarians and technicians and support staff. And so we want them to be aware of their biases and have resources. And so you go through that training, and as you create your profile, you can decide whether you want to be a mentor, a mentee, or both. And that's because we believe that everyone has something to offer and everyone has something to learn. And so as you are going through that journey, we don't necessarily expect the veterinarians that have been out for 10, 15 years to mentor everybody on that pipeline.
Sure.
So the way we see it, current veterinary students are able to mentor, pre-veterinary students, and then veterinarians are able to mentor vet students. But at the same time, senior vet students can mentor, junior vet students.
Yeah.
So it's really all about creating those connections. So we don't have an established mentorship program. What we do is facilitate the connections that create those mentorship relationships. And if people are interested, we have an algorithm that can pair you with individuals, or we can do a manual pairing. And so we're just trying to create a space where informal mentorship can happen. And we are trying to open it up to the profession as a whole, because I know a lot of what I learned from assistants and technicians, and I've been mentored by as many of those as I have been by veterinarians and by people that are in the profession in other roles, such as yourself.
Yeah. So, these kind of informal things are so important, because I think that, a lot of groups focus so deeply on creating a structured mentor program. And, it's like, okay, we're going to do mentoring, speed dating, and we're going to try to get people together. And a lot of what I see, and including in veterinary medicine, some of these programs really just don't work well, whether they are at, the professional organization or even locally at some of the colleges. The programs just don't quite curl all the way over, as we say, right? It just doesn't quite meet those needs. And so, what I have historically found, at least and even in my own career, is that informal mentoring, is kind of where it's at, right? And so this idea of kind of facilitating just networking people together and letting them navigate how they want those relationships to grow and mature is a really kind of cool thing. So what resources do you kind of help folks find, and like what's that part of the programming?
Yeah, so we have a little bit of everything, and that's the fun part of it. But it's also where a lot of our resources get taken up, trying to provide resources for others. So I agree with you, on the informal mentorship and versus the formal mentorship. I think there's a need for both, and so as part of our resources, we have for example, scholarships to the Mentor Vet program. And so we have some of our recent graduates. I'm actually going through the program right now and really enjoying it. And so we do partnerships with a lot of different organizations to provide some of those resources. If people want to do a more formal program, we have an entire resources tab that has, these are some of the conversation topics. And we know in the future, we want to establish something that is not formal in the sense of this is your 3-year mentoring program, but here are some monthly topics that you can discuss if you're meeting with your mentor this month. We also provide different seminars. So we have had a lot of partnering organizations come in. Dr. Addie Reinhardt from Mentor Vet actually came in and did a QPR training. We have had, let's see, compassion, fatigue, and burnout. We've had Dr. Nicole Bruno talking about leadership in the hospital. That was a little bit before. Now she has her blend program, and we partner with them as well. We had Dr. Adam Chrisman come in and talk about changing careers. We had Dr. Quincy Hawley come in to talk about get motivated. And so we're growing slowly. We had Dr. Lila Perica come in from Vet Ahead, come in and talk about being a zoo veterinarian. Or we've had, I guess I've been doing these series on poultry diseases. So there's a little bit of everything. We're trying to give people things that they would be interested in. So we try to have different networking events. Our whole board of directors has been signing up for these different networking events. And they're just informal. Everybody comes in and you just chat about life or whatever topic the facilitator wants to talk about that day. We had the Through the Lens series. So that is one series we've partnered with Zoetis on. They funded it every year for 3 years now. And on the first one, we did one series of 4 episodes in which for each one, we broke it down by different racial and ethnic groups. So we did through the lens of Black and African American veterinarians and technicians, and through the lens of Hispanic and Latinx vets and techs. And so we did that last year. This year, we did multicultural veterinarians and technicians. We did 2 for the LGBTQI community as well. And then next year, we have some plans on how we want to spice it up a little. And then we did another 4-part series on advising versus coaching versus mentoring. And that was a lot of fun. So we pre-record a lot of our events, and we're actually in the process of building a database in which our members can actually come in and watch some of those videos. And then within our resources, we have areas where, like, if we know of scholarships, we send them out. We have a monthly newsletter, and where there are areas where you can go in and look at some of the pre-vet and pre-tech programs at different schools, like the Vets That Go and the different programs that Purdue has. So pretty much anything that we think would be useful to our people in turning it into a database.
Very cool. So how many people do you have on the platform presently?
As of today, 350, and that's from about, I think, between 35 and 40 US states. We actually have, I think, 6 or 7 different countries, usually like one person from different countries, because we don't really say no to individuals that are coming from outside of the US, although we do specify that most of our resources are going to be towards individuals in veterinary medicine in the US. But yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of growth there. That's really exciting. So, my last show, I had the DEI Commission, the AVMA, AAVMC DEI Commission, and one of the things that we talked about was, the dramatic growth in affinity groups in the last 2 years, again, in the wake of the summer of 2020. Where does Pawsibilities fit in kind of this new burgeoning kind of DEI organization, organized vet med?
I believe that we're a pipeline. So we are, we have this graphic, it's kind of like train tracks going around, and through it is kind of a funnel, right? So people come into this profession at a lot of different stages. So you may come in, decide that you want to do it when you're 5, when you're 10, when you're 20, when you're 30. And so we see ourselves as the place where a lot of these groups can kind of interact or send people or connect. So we're more of the all-encompassing network. So we partner with a lot of the affinity groups, so Black DVM Network, LVMA, AAVMP, the North Carolina Minority Association for Minority Veterinarians. We have individuals from those organizations that we communicate with all the time and try to send out information and bring people into the platform for that mentorship. We are Pride VMC's and I believe LVMA's main mentoring platform.
Wow.
And so our dream is really to become that pipeline where if individuals do some of the summer programs that are, a day or a week or a month, your Vet Set Go or whatever other programs, they can come in after and get that longevity so that you can come in and at each time point, find what you need, regardless of the stage that you're on. But we really see ourselves as not one affinity group, but one place where intersectionality can take place.
Wow, that's really cool. So, you've got 300 plus folks. You've been around for a few years now. You did mention Giving Tuesday and those types of things and the need to continue to raise funds. So, where do you see Pawsibilities going?
I see it taking over the world. Just kidding. So I really see it as a place to level the playing field. I see it as the place where individuals can come in and learn about all the possibilities, haha, pun intended, within the veterinary profession, be that, different careers where they can find mentors, where they can give back, and a place where people can grow together. So I see it as really being a community that supports one another.
Nice, nice. And what is the one thing that you think would be that big tipping point for Pawsibilities to take off and have 1,000 people in the platform?
I really think that opening up the platform to individuals 13 and older, having the funds to do that outreach to a lot of those communities. So creating that partnership with a lot of these groups that are already doing some of this work. I don't see us as doubling efforts. I think we can connect a lot of the outreach that is already happening, figure out where the gaps are, and then work on filling in those gaps. So for me, that is this platform expansion and really connecting a lot of the groups that are out there in veterinary medicine already doing this work.
Got it. Great, great. So now, is Pawsibilities an app? Certainly we know that there's a website, but what is this platform? Is it an app that we can all go to I'm an Android person, folks, so the Google store, or, that other thing that people use?
Yes. So you can actually, if you go onto the Pawsibilities website, which is pawsibilitiesvetnet.com, on the Join Us tab, it has all of the different steps. So it's first creating an account, completing the mandatory training, and then we send you the link for the platform. And so the platform can be a separate website, or you can have it as an app on your Android or your Apple phone.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So you just can't go and join people. You got to jump through some hoops first to make sure that you're worthy.
That's one way to put it.
Are you worthy?
But it's also not so much like you are worthy, but if you're not, we'll make you worthy with the training, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's okay to have prereqs. We have prereqs. It's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. So, what do you see as the biggest challenge, that, with launching a program like this and keeping it sustainable?
Yep. For us, it has been manpower and funding, because when we decided to launch, we had already been working on it kind of on the side for a little while, and then it had been on the back burner for a year. And then with everything that happened, as you mentioned, with George Floyd, all of a sudden, DEI was front and center. Whereas for a lot of companies before that and a lot of groups, we know for who it was important and we know for who it wasn't.
Right.
And so we came in at a time when everybody wanted to do something about it. And we were fortunate enough to get a really good group, a good advisory board, a good board of directors, and a few volunteers. But we also started getting pulled from a lot of different directions for a lot of initiatives that were really cool and really did fit in, with our mission. Some of them didn't, some of them did. But so the hardest part has really been finding that balance and being able to direct the funds towards what we see as our bottom line and our growth. So right now, my husband and I, as the CEO and COO, donate all of our time to Pawsibilities. And we have one full-time employee and 2 part-time employees. And it's been great, but we're not at the point where we're quite a sustainable organization. And so we're working on different avenues for revenue that are more sustainable, because right now we're relying 100% on donations from corporations and individuals. So we're in the process of applying for different grants and figuring out funds to ways to build that revenue. So doing a job board, and I don't know, we'll see what else.
Yeah. Well, so yes, usually the Tuesday, I think, after American Thanksgiving anyway, is what we call here in the States Giving Tuesday. So how would folks support Pawsibilities?
So we will actually be putting out a link with a landing page and putting it out all over social media. We are on Instagram and Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and people can go on there and donate. They can share, they can like. If people can just come and follow us on social media and comment on our posts and share our posts, that really, really helps. And then if for anybody who is interested in mentoring or in being a mentor or being a mentee, just join the platform. We'd love to have you.
Great. Yeah. And so, yes, there's a nice little pretty money green button on the Pawsibilities website. So you can go on over there should you desire. So, I just have a couple more questions for you, Valerie. What do you see, what is a space for Pawsibilities that you'd like to move into? What is that kind of opportunities do you see that, you're not in a position to do quite yet, but really are looking to, way down, on the horizon?
We really want to start being present in a lot of the schools, be that, some of the undergraduate programs, the vet tech programs, the vet programs with different, we've had actually several undergraduate and veterinary and vet tech students reach out and ask for an ambassador program. And they really want to do it. But I also feel that individuals such as ourselves oftentimes donate our time quite a bit. And so I want to get to the point where I can offer something in exchange for some of these positions, as opposed to just here volunteer this many hours spreading the word about Pawsibilities. So what I would really like is to be able to build a program that also gives people a small scholarship or gives them something to help them to, the vet tech or the vet program. So it would be great to be able to offer something like that and have the resources to expand the program to really anybody who wants to do it, because right now we don't have the money. We also don't have the time to have, to have someone oversee a number of ambassadors. So we're shorthanded and poor. So it's
sure,
a little bit of a challenge. So that is one of the projects that we're working on.
Okay. All right. So, something you alluded to has kind of got me thinking of two questions for you. And the first is, you mentioned how, some of the populations that you're targeting and you're working with, these are individuals that end up kind of giving. The literature calls it the diversity tax, where, there's this kind of either through choice and or assignment, BIPOC individuals in, almost any industry are kind of tapped to, do mentoring, tapped to do outreach, tapped to do all of the things when they might be the lonely only. And, it's kind of a catch-22, right? You don't want to be the lonely only anymore, so somebody's got to do the recruitment, but why does the one person who's the lonely only has to do the recruitment as well, right? And so, what types of things have you thought about for Pawsibilities to kind of, certainly we talked just now about the potential for expansion, but how are you potentially maybe coaching existing mentors on how to practice a little bit of self-protection?
So a lot of what we are and we aren't. So that concept has really seeped through our organization. As soon as we started, we had many groups that were starting their own DEI journey and were coming to us for advice. And it was taking a toll. It was taking a toll on me as kind of the face of Pawsibilities, the number of calls that I could do, in an evening while I still had a full-time job. And this was my side gig. And it was continuous. We're starting this, how can we partner? I'm like, I'm not sure that there is a place to partner, right? You don't have anything, you don't have goals, you don't have a mission. And so what we started doing was creating a set of consulting fees. and saying, sure, we can help you. Here are consulting fees. And so I would say 9 out of 10 times those individuals would say, well, we're not at a place where we have that, so let us come back to you.
Wow.
And it's been 2 years, and I think 90% of those groups have not come back to us. So what we realize is that continues to happen. Individuals are asked to donate their time. And so what we've done with Pawsibilities is specifically say to individuals, when we ask you to be on a panel, to come in and do a seminar, you are not donating your time. You can ask for an honorarium. And we still have a number of individuals who decide to donate their honorarium back to Pawsibilities, but we're trying to make the point that it is okay to get paid to do a lot of these engagements. And we do go through and actually pull from our membership for some of these panels. And we find individuals and say, look, we've heard you've had really great experiences, or experiences you may be interested in sharing, or you may have a story to tell. Come join us. And again, that comes with an honorarium. So it's one way in which we are trying to do that, because our volunteers, our mentors and mentees are volunteering their time to do this, but we don't really have a way, because the whole program is free of charge for the mentees and the mentors. We don't really have a way to change that.
Yeah. So,
but we are recruiting a lot of allies. And so part of it is, if we have, say, then hypothetically, but actually less than 2%, Black veterinarians, we can expect those less than 2% individuals to help with all of the recruitment, all the diversity work of all the potentially Black and African American students that we want to come. We know that there is definitely a value in being mentored both by individuals that are like you and individuals that are different from you. And so we want to provide that visibility. Look, there are people like you that are doing it, but we also want our allies to come in and help with some of that mentorship to help retain individuals, which will ultimately lead to more recruitment.
Sure. Great. Yes. And so, yes, two things. One, I just have to co-sign on that, because folks that know me well, I'm always, often bombarded with, hey, can you teach me about DEI? Folks kind of slide into my inbox, right? And there's a part of you when you're kind of faced with these types of things where you're like, yeah, I certainly want to help. I want to be giving. I want to be generous, but I'm also like, I have a job, and it's not individual, it's not individualized education. That's not actually the job, right? And so, folks that know me well know that periodically I just have this PSA that is like, hey, DEI content is readily available on Beyonce's internet. You should just go ahead and Google that before you ask me for a tailored, syllabus on what you should be, doing. And the last time I did that, I was just like, no, you have to pay for this. This is actual labor. It's stuff that folks like you and I are passionate about, but it's labor. It is labor. And there's a huge emotional component to that labor as well, I think, that we have to acknowledge. So with that all in mind, then, Dr. Marcano, how are you practicing, well-being for you, as, someone who has a fair amount of visibility now in the profession and in leading this young, growing organization? How does Valerie take care of Valerie, so that folks kind of know that they need to do that too?
Absolutely.
Does Valerie and Lisa need to have an offline conversation about just in the interest of disclosure, I do mentor Valerie and Valerie mentors me. So
it really started with a story of early burnout. Having done both a vet and a PhD program combined, and at the same time, having you as a mentor, I was leading the national, voice organization. I had the swine aquaculture poultry club that I had started at Georgia, and I had 2 part-time jobs. And I've just always been a busybody who does not know how to relax. And I've had to train myself. So back in, gosh, this must have been either 2018 or 2019, I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And the reason I was diagnosed was because for about 5 years before that, I had a bazillion doctor visits where nobody could figure out why I could sleep 9 and 10 hours and be exhausted, why I kept spraining different joints, why I bruise so easy, all these different things, right? So it got to the point where I could literally not go up and down stairs physically.
Wow.
I had to take an elevator for a half flight of stairs. And I'm sad to say, like, for me, it was like all the shame. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is happening? And so I would some days just like be like, oh, people are going to judge me if I take the elevator. So let me just take about 15 minutes to go up these like 10 steps. It's like, what is worse, that like people see me doing this, or that I take the elevator and pretend it never happened, right? So it just went through this whole period of what is happening to me. And when I got diagnosed, I started reading about it and learning about it. And I remember my geneticist gave me this book about EDS, and I was like, surely I'm mostly a normal person. What are you talking about? And I remember reading that book and being like, oh my God, somebody has been like following me. Anything from sleeping to like heat intolerance to different foods to how often people use the bathroom, like literally the silliest things in my mind that I thought were normal about me were not. I didn't realize other people didn't go through that. I just assumed everybody was in pain all the time. They just didn't complain about it. So I didn't complain about it, because why would I be the person that complained, right? And so it started when the physical therapy group that I was seeing was actually making it worse for me. And I decided to find a physical therapist that I knew about EDS. And the one that was closest to me was an hour and 15 minutes away, and I was in clinics. And so I remember taking what felt like a bit of a shameful walk to the main office and saying, I need to go to physical therapy. And they said, oh, that's fine. And I said, so it's an hour away. So it's a 3.5 to 4 hour trip every time I do this. Like, this is it's an afternoon. And they said it was fine. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? It's okay. And so I was doing this kind of every week, every other week, trying to fit it in with clinics, trying to see if I could like swap some shifts. And honestly, my rotation mates were amazing about it. And so I realized that I could ask for those things. And it took me a long time to ask, but then I realized it was okay. And so as I went through that process, then all COVID like started. I ended vet school, moved to a different place, started a new job, launched a nonprofit, and then all the calls started. It was every weekend, every evening. It would get to Sunday night and I was exhausted. But you know what? I loved poultry, which is what I was doing for my day job. I loved DEI, which is what I was doing in the evening. So why would I complain about it again? Right? It's kind of that same story of like, surely everybody is this tired. So why would I complain about it? And eventually I said, you know what, this is not sustainable. I'm always telling other people to take care of themselves. And so we pushed through and hired our first part-time employee who had been actually volunteering their time under the promise, which was not an empty promise because we did it, that we would, as soon as we had funds, hire her. And so we did. And then we started taking Friday nights off. And then we started taking Saturdays off. And then we decided, as we hired our program director, Heather, full time, that we were going to try to take weekends off, except for like an afternoon if something needed to get done. And at that time, I also decided when I passed poultry boards, I was going to start drumming lessons, which blurred behind me is my drum set that I bought. And actually, as of 4 weeks ago, I started my drumming lessons because I passed boards and I am now a boarded poultry professional. And so I started doing these monthly massages. I got myself into therapy, and I do therapy weekly. And then I do psychiatry once a quarter. And so I just have, I have my physical
Yeah.
therapy appointments, my therapy appointments, my massage appointments, just kind of intertwined into my
Yeah.
schedule to
Yeah.
make sure I take that time for myself. My husband and I bought bikes, and we go out biking, we walk the dogs. And it's just been a matter of realizing that if I don't take care of me, nobody else will. Although I have to say, my husband really tries his hardest. He tries really hard to take care of me, but it's hard to take care of somebody who doesn't want to take care of themselves. So when I'm in those moods that I'm like, go, 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 I have to remind myself that I have certain limitations, and I have to listen to my body. And that means sometimes I have to take time off. And sometimes I forget. The type A person in me forgets, and I do too much. And then I pay for it, and then I remember.
Yeah. 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 Well, Valerie, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that, there are times when those of us who have, limitations, disabilities, that we often kind of hide them. We don't talk about them. Sometimes there's a lot of shame in what we can't do versus what we can do potentially with limitations or with adaptations, those kinds of things. And so I think, I'm glad that I asked you that question. It wasn't on my list. Wasn't on my list, but I think that there's also a challenge for folks with marginalized identities who oftentimes feel like in some of these scenarios, we can't say no. Right? Because one, either we're a little bit afraid that the opportunity will not present itself again, right? Or if we say no, what message are we inadvertently sending, not only about ourselves, but everyone that looks like us, right? Mm-hmm. There's this burden that kind of is attached to it. And so, thank you. I just want to just say from me to you, thank you for sharing that, because I don't think that we do enough and aren't transparent enough to really kind of talk about some of these things. So thank you for that.
I tried to, and that's because I've realized that, like you said, a lot of times we don't talk about those things. Yeah. And I feel that every time I have opened myself up to that, I do get a little message from someone who says, thank you. Like, yeah, I needed to hear that. So that's like, I didn't get in my first round of vet school applications, right? I didn't. Yeah. And when I talk to students, I almost always mention it. Yeah. Because there's this thought that there's like shame in not getting in, when the reality is so competitive that a lot of people don't. Yeah. And it's okay. Yeah. So I do that with that. I try to do it with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I have been diagnosed with ADHD and depression and anxiety. And so I have to build in, these teams. I didn't actually get diagnosed with ADHD until this year. And it was the same thing with the EDS, where I just kept saying, I'm tired, or I don't feel like I can focus, or I don't feel like I can do this. And a lot of the feedback that I got, and not really necessarily from like people that were close to me, but sometimes like family members or something like that, it would be like, I mean, but you just do so much, you do so much, or how can you have ADHD when you've made it through, all of these degrees or whatever else? So is this thought like, it can't possibly be me, right? Yeah. Like I wouldn't have done all these things because people with ADHD like don't like. Yeah. Yeah. What's that about? Like, so I do feel a weird sense of empowerment. Is almost like that dark feeling of, how much easier the last 10 years were.
I could have been so much happier.
And at the same time, it's like, oh, like this is part of why I felt like it was a little harder. So maybe it is true that it was a little more difficult for me. It's like this strange feeling where you're like, but I don't want to feel that way. Like, yeah. It's all these mixed emotions of like, I wouldn't have made it, but I did make it. So does that make me like a superhuman? Well, but it would have
Right.
been so much easier if I had had medication, but then
Right.
would it have been? So I don't know.
Well, and I mean, I think that it's also important for folks to understand that these are very layered feelings, right? So these are, we've been talking for the last few minutes about, health and well-being, as, you're a young leader in veterinary medicine. But the reality is that these feelings also kind of are, when we're not talking about health and we're talking about work, these same feelings, we package them and call them imposter syndrome, right? And we know that folks with marginalized identities tend to suffer from them, suffer from imposter syndrome often, sometimes at a higher rate than our peers. And so, just I think it's important for folks to just know that all of this is kind of happening for a lot of folks in the background. And I think that everybody has some version of it, but I do think that for folks with marginalized backgrounds, including, disabilities, whether they're visible or not, including our, gender and sexual minority folks, everybody is kind of experiencing some version of this. And so, the need to practice that self-care and to really kind of carve out that time to be well, and to push forward is really essential. So again, thank you for sharing. Really
I tried to. I tried to.
Oh.
One of the strategies I've been using to overcome the imposter syndrome is listing what I've done.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like, especially if I'm talking to a friend or something like that, like I'm just like bragging, and that's the imposter syndrome again, right? I'm just like, wait, hold on. It's like when the daily version of it is when my husband comes home and it's like, so how was your day? What did you do? Oh, not much. I don't feel like I was very productive. I just did this and 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 this. Oh, and by the way, I was able to do this and this and this. And it's
Yeah.
like, wait, like I was productive. Sure, I didn't get through my impossible to-do list.
Yeah.
And I feel like that with life a little bit too, right? There's like, oh, but I'm young, but I haven't done that much, but I haven't experienced that much. Well, I guess in my 30 years, I've done a few different degrees, led a few different organizations, and started a nonprofit and an LLC. I don't know, like, is that enough? What is enough? Define enough.
Right. That's a lot.
And I had this the other day. So I do some of the low cost mobile vaccine clinics, and I had this one was at a Tractor Supply, and I had left the group because we were done, but I was shopping around because they had jeans, and I was like, oh, look, jeans. And I don't think they realized that I was literally an aisle over. So I heard them talk about someone, and they were saying all these nice things. And I was like, oh, that sounds nice. And then somebody said, oh yeah, any day that I work with Dr. Marcano is a good day. And I turned around and I was like, they were talking about, and that was the time when I was like, hey guys, I figured you should know I'm right here. And they're all like, but to me, that was like a weird validation of,
Yeah.
maybe the things I'm doing and the way I'm doing things is okay.
Yeah, it's okay, and it's making a difference. So great. Well, I think that that's a great place to put a pin in it for today. Dr. Marcano, Valerie, thank you for joining me on today's show. It's been really a lovely conversation, and I wish you and Seth, all the success in the world with Pawsibilities. So.
Dr. Greenhill, Lisa, thank you so much for having me today. It's been a great conversation. And I mean, this podcast / videos / seminars are just absolutely fantastic, and just what this industry needs. Thank you.
you. Thanks a bunch. I really appreciate it. So this has been another episode of AAVMC's Diversity and Inclusion on Air. To my guests again, Valerie, thank you for joining me, and good luck to Pawsibilities. Be sure to go check out Pawsibilities for Giving Tuesday. Also, I just want to say we are at 599 subscribers on YouTube. Come on, somebody. Make Dr. Greenhill happy and take us to 600. Come on, two somebodies, make me happy and get me to 600 and get me past it. So be sure to like and subscribe to the show on both YouTube and your favorite podcast app. And we look forward to our next episode sometime in the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much for viewing. Thank you so much